What's up, Ham Fam? Welcome back to another episode of Heart as a Mother. For those who are just tuning in, my name is Giselle, also known as Jizzy, and I am your hostess with the mostest. And here with me, as always, my lovely co-host, Harleen.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction.
Of course, yeah.
Lovely.
So if you're just tuning in, we're just two moms creating a safe space for other moms, dads, grandparents, or anybody really to talk about the honesty and the realness that comes with parenthood, while also being able to laugh at ourselves and drink, because that's what Tuesdays are for now.
It's Thirsty Thursday, but it's Thirsty Tuesdays.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Katrina.
Cheers, Katrina. Sorry, I can't reach that far, but cheers.
So today we're actually drinking champagne. I don't know why. Just wanted to feel fancy, and because someone posted in the Costco group that it was really good. So, are you part of YYC Costco lovers?
No, but I'm hearing so much about it today that I'm going to literally follow them now. I'm going to be broke now because
Oh yeah.
anyone who goes to Costco is like, I'm going to buy one or two things and then $300 later. You're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know how it happens.
It just happens.
It just does.
It's because you go down those aisles and then it's like, I need this, but you don't really need it.
No. So I just want to give a quick shout out to our Ham Fam. You guys are truly amazing. Keep sliding right into our DMs, sharing your wins, your struggles, and most importantly, your support. It's what gets us here. Every day, or not every day, every week. But every day we're always constantly getting messages from people, and you guys are truly inspiring us and to creating this platform. So don't forget to click, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, most importantly, so you don't miss an episode of Heart as a Mother. So today we want to deep dive into topics of finding balance in your life, how to live a fulfilling life, ways to work as a couple with your children, where there's breakdown and separation and divorce, and how to set those differences aside, and most importantly, how to help your children deal with navigating grief while you're navigating your own feelings.
Yeah. And so as women, parents, moms, sisters, colleagues, as you know, we wear many hats during the day. And today we have a very special guest who has worked with numerous families, where she'll discuss this with us. She's a registered psychologist who runs a therapeutic private practice in Alberta. She's trained in mediation and family conflict. And she also works as an executive mentor for Win Enterprises. She has a decade of experience working with individuals and a wide range of presenting concerns. She has worked closely with at-risk populations as well as high-level executives. She's specialized training in working with trauma, suicide, grief, and attachment. And if those things aren't enough, she's also a yoga teacher and a Reiki master. So you can really tell that she's passionate about her work. So we want to welcome Katrina Shaw. Hi, Katrina.
Hello.
We're so excited to have you on the show. With all the amazing work that you're doing, you're a yoga teacher and a Reiki master. So obviously you're busy. Please share with us how you're able to juggle everything.
It's a good question. I think, honestly, it just takes practice to really prioritize self-care. And I think, too, I try to really listen to my body. I think I could easily just plow on, but then I'm going to burn out at some point. Like you can only help people so much. It's kind of like that metaphor. You have to put on your own air mask before everyone else's. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, I think for myself, I know to listen to what my body needs, and I make sure I prioritize that.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of being a yoga instructor, like that's what they teach you, right?
Totally. Yeah, totally. To be able to kind of connect to yourself and notice what's happening for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're really big advocates on mental health. Currently, you're involved in the development of the Men's Mental Health Initiative in Calgary. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So two friends of mine, they're males. They kind of came up with this idea of wanting to be better men. They want to be able to be more vulnerable, more real, more honest, and in, I guess, consequence of that, to be able to be better partners, better dads, better, just better people all around. So we initially just started talking with ideas about how they could move this forward, what they needed to know, what to think about, and then we just in our conversations formed a relationship. So now I'm building out the programming for them.
Nice.
I'm building a year program right now for in all these different areas of life for men to kind of begin a dive within themselves. How else would I say that? Yeah, like to turn inwards and go on kind of a bit of a journey with themselves. And then I guess we'll see what kind of feedback we get from it and just keep building from there.
Really looking forward to that. But like, what do you think it takes for a man to get to that point? Because a common thing we always talk about here is toxic masculinity.
Right. Yeah.
And, with the generations before us, it was kind of looked down on for men to feel a certain way. So I think a lot of our generation is struggling from that. And so what do you think it takes for a man to get to that point, to want to dive into their own journey?
I think probably a few things, but I'd say the biggest thing is probably courageous men who are vulnerable are opening the door or creating a platform for other men to be vulnerable. And so I think the more that men get on each other's team of like, dude, we can be real and I got you, I think that they slowly begin to create a new world for men in and of themselves, instead of upholding and perpetuating this belief of like, I got to be the tough guy and I can't ever talk about my feelings. So I really do think it starts with men who are courageous enough to do it, and then other men will start to do it more. And then I think the other piece was probably if men have hit maybe a dark place in their life, right? Like whether it be a relationship fails or financial crisis or whatever it is, I think sometimes our lowest points can be the catalyst to change and wanting to live life differently.
Absolutely. I know that over the holidays, I do actually know some people who have actually taken their own life because of mental health, and they were actually men. Do you think that there's enough resources for men to come out and actually talk about the issues that they're having? Because I know in Calgary, I don't think there's enough resources for men to turn.
No, I don't think so at all. And because I used to specialize in suicide bereavement specifically. And what I noticed was basically, I'm pretty sure almost every person I supported in their loss was the loss of a male. And I really don't think that there's enough resources specifically addressing men's mental health.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears a little bit because we're going to talk about that. So obviously, I don't know. Have you watched the show Working Moms?
Yes.
Yes. I love that show. And guys, get on Netflix, watch that show. It is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. We are on lockdown for another 2 weeks. You have nothing else to do. Watch it. It's so funny.
And you know what? And also watch Hard as a Mother. But the thing is, I love this show because it is so real. It's so honest. And every single one of these women that are there, my girlfriends and myself have actually done these things.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up the fact that there's a mom on the show. I forgot what her name is, but she was shamed because after having her baby, she wanted to go back to work. She was growing her own public relations firm on the show. And she was so damn good at her job, how they portrayed her. Yeah. So most women, like I could relate to her because I want to chase my dreams. When I know I'm good at something, I know I'm good at it. Yeah. So why do you think that there's such stigma behind women who want to go back to work early after having their baby?
I don't know if I have the magic answer. I think my answer is that everybody's got an opinion about everything these days, and everybody wants to criticize everybody.
Yeah.
It's like a lose, particularly for everybody. no matter what you're doing, someone's going to criticize it.
It's true. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a mom who, will say, at the end of the day, I could sit here and say, I don't really give a shit what people say. But you know what? If I'm going to be real with myself, I kind of do give a shit what people say. And
Yeah, we care.
I care. I do care. So what would you say that was me, give advice for me with how I will navigate my own feelings, my friends, my family that have these opinions, because I know I have someone who was close to me who literally made that comment and said, I don't know if I could do your job leaving your kid and traveling everywhere for work. And it's just kind of like, well, it's my job and no one's going to pay my bills. So I know what I'm sacrificing, but I know what the end goal is as well. And I know quality time that I have with my child, but it hit so close to home and it hurt like hell when someone said that, because it made me feel less of a person and as a mom. Like, how can I address that with them without sounding like I'm going to jump on the table and claw their face off?
So bitch? Yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to say bitch, but
You can
yeah,
say
I didn't
bitch.
want to be a bitch.
Oh man, yeah. You guys are throwing tough things at me. I think it's normal to have an emotional reaction. Like I think we have to be. I think have to have done a lot of self work to not be impacted by people's words. Like,
I guess that's true. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be impacted by people's
It's a
words.
human response.
Yeah, especially people that are close to us. Like, you're gonna have some type of response. I think what I would probably encourage people to do is like dig deep within yourself and figure out like what matters to me and how do I make sense of my own life, because there is no right path. Like, there just isn't.
Right.
And it's kind of a privileged stance to say like stay at home with your babies when great, that would be really nice, but life costs a lot.
Yeah.
University costs a lot.
Oh yeah.
Kids cost a lot. So
Fucking breathing costs a lot.
yeah.
Staying alive.
Costco.
How about it? It's a cost. I'm paying for my Costco addiction.
So there's this statement that there's this statement that, sometimes, I mean, even I would say it. It's like, women can have it all. I can do it all. Do you think that's such a dated thing to say these days? Because can women really have it all?
Oh man, you're throwing hard ones at me.
I'm sorry. It's just, you know what? These are questions that I actually ask for myself, because I'm pretty sure there's other women out there, because I, just like last night, I was just like, I sit and I ponder and I'm like, did I make the right decision in, chasing my career, doing all these things? And there was a price to be paid. Like, obviously I can't take it back, but, like I sit and wonder.
Yeah, and I think that that's exactly it, is that we're going to face at times competing values.
Yeah.
So you have a value of like wanting to work and maybe wanting to have a sense of purpose or a sense of contribution in some way, which I think is really important. And then a value of I want to have time with my babies and raise my kids and all of those things. So we have these competing values at different points in our life, whatever they may be. And this is where I think life is like a constant evolution. Like, at first you might have made the decision to go back to work, and then you might be in a better financial position to say, I want to take some time off for my next kid or whatever it is. So it's always like this evolution. I don't think it's one decision and then it's either right or wrong and you've ruined your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Like for me, we talked about it in a previous episode that I just got a new job in a new industry, and it happened at the same time where my partner and I were like, okay, we should have another baby. And so we were actually going to, and then I got the job, and then, the podcast was happening, and I was like, everything's really good right now. I kind of don't want to fuck it up. Like, maybe we can put that on the back burner. But do you deal with women who are always having to choose between one or the other, and that kind of just messes them up a little bit? Because I know for a while for me, I was like, this isn't fucking fair. Like, why? If I was a man, I could do whatever the fuck I want. I can pick up a new job. I can have 5 babies right now if I wanted to, and no one would bat an eye. Yeah. But because I have so much going on and it's my body and I would be the one taking time off. Like, do women often come to you with that like grief of having to lose that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, and I don't know that it always presents itself in that way, but I think lots of people come to me where their conflict in their marriage is about that. So like there's just tension. It creates tension. And what I would hope for women and men is like, let's break through all of these preconceived ideas of what our lives should look like. That like the man should stay at work and go to his business meetings and go for drinks after work while we're at home with our kids. Like, I just don't think that we need to continue down these paths of ideas of the right and wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
I honestly, when I do couples work, I try to really help each couple verbalize what is important to each of us as human beings, and how do we integrate that with each other, and let's not do what people are just expecting us to do.
Mm-hmm. And that again goes back to not caring what people think, but you kind of do.
Yeah, I know. It's honestly, these things are really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. You mentioned how we shouldn't care what people say, right? So obviously, we've talked about it in previous episodes where sometimes our family gets in the way. Well, we're talking about, like, say it's your spouse or your partner or significant other's parents, and they're literally chiming in either your ear or their ear, and it puts like a strain between the two relationship where it's like you feel like you have, like, obviously you have a relationship with your in-laws, but how do you create that boundary, and how do you talk to your partner and say, hey, listen, I'm not the one getting into bed with like your mom or your dad or whatever. But why is it that it's affecting so much of our life and our decisions based on what they're saying? I know in our culture, it's like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how could a couple navigate through that, or what advice could you give to either the woman or the man to be like, how do you take their relationship and take, and take outside advice and just take it, like, how do they get through it?
Yeah. I think one of the, like, boundaries are maybe one of the most complex things, as well as, communication. So these things are not easy things to navigate. But one of the ways that I always try to help people to maintain strength in the relationship is, like, go in validating the other person's perspective first. So if your parents have an opinion and your parents are trying to, pipe in and they mean well, and we know they mean well, it's okay to go in and be like, I get it. I get why you're doing this. I get why you're trying to help. I just want you to acknowledge that, this is also my family life, and I have a partner who I'm trying to make decisions with. And I mean, that's the ideal situation, but there's a lot of people who aren't, can't communicate, and it escalates into conflict and guilt trips and all kinds of things. So there's no like one answer, but and certainly there's abuse and all kinds of things. So I always encourage people, if you can express kindly, like, I can hear your perspective, I also need you to hear mine. That's probably maybe the golden rule of how do I go into a conversation.
And it's just like a form of empathy too, right?
Yeah.
Which is really important and very hard sometimes. So speaking of conflict in a relationship then, like, what do you think is the biggest reason for losing touch with your partner after kids come into the picture? Because so often there's couples who you think you're good, you guys are solid, everything's great, and then boom comes a kid, and all of a sudden everything is just so different. Like, what's the biggest reason for that?
Well, do you guys have kids?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys are mothers?
Yeah.
Kids are crazy. Kids are fucking wild.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Kids are not easy. And so you expect, like, we're good when things are good in our lives, and then add a whole bunch of chaos and stress and overwhelm and not sleeping and all kinds of things to the mix. And your attention moves from you guys as a unit to kids. So your attention is somewhere else, and your time is occupied. And I mean, quickly you can just slip away from making space to focus on how do we connect and how do we make time for us.
Yeah. And Giselle and I talk about, losing ourselves and finding authenticity in our own lives. While I lost myself after having a child because I just became mom. Mm-hmm. And Giselle found herself because she became a mom. Mm-hmm. What steps do you think women can take, or not even just women, or just whoever's raising kids? What steps do you think they can take to distinguish whether you're not just mom versus just you? Mm-hmm. Like, how do you juggle the you as an individual and not just mom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of one of those balances, because I think anybody who has kids or has been around kids, I mean, we prioritize their needs, we prioritize everything for them. And I think there can be a lot of shame in trying to also create space for yourself in your life, and recognizing that kids are resilient. Like, they don't need you 100% of the time to be, the life manager and the cook and the, all of these things. So I always tell people, like, don't just put everything that matters to you aside and focus on your kids. Try to say, like, this matters to me, so I want to bring my kids in to be part of it. Mm-hmm. Again, I think it takes self-awareness and some self-reflection and owning a little bit of, like, let's say you really love to camp. I love to camp. And so I could easily go into, like, well, I have young kids now, so I don't really camp. Yeah. Or I could just be like, I'm taking them. Mm-hmm. It's probably a lot to pack and, like, a lot of work. Yep. But I'm just going to do it because it matters, and I want them to be part of it, and I just make it happen.
Mm-hmm. So kind of just not losing focus on what's important to you, but kind of just intermixing the two.
Yeah, and I think it just really takes some self-awareness and being gentle with yourself. Like, don't beat yourself up if you're not on 100% of the time as mom.
I think that's a huge struggle for every mom, is they beat themselves up, and we do it every day. Are you a mom?
No, I have stepkids, though.
Okay, so you still are a mom.
Hold on. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So actually, this is just pops into my head. So how do you navigate having stepkids? Like, I mean, it's tough when you date someone or you're married or whatever, and then there's other kids involved. Like, what kind of experience did you have with that? Like, what did you do to be like, hi, I'm friendly, I'm not trying to be like your mom, I'm your friend, but how did you navigate through that?
Yeah, I took it really slow. I didn't force myself on them at all. I was just like, I would sit with them and be like, tell me about what's going on, and they would and then it just slowly over time, they start to open up to me, and I made a conscious choice to, when I was around them, to be present. Like, I was like, they deserve for me to be present. Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to be too busy on my phone or whatever. And if they were talking to me, I was interested. And I think that just built trust over time. It was like, she cares about what I'm saying. She's not too busy. She isn't here to, force me to do anything, or, and I always, like, let their parents parent them. Yeah. But then now they are just sort of include me as, like, their parent. Like, they did that all on their own, and
and that's the goal, right?
Yeah, I didn't have to force it, and I got lucky because they're really good kids, so I didn't have to navigate anger or anything like that. They just they were always polite at the beginning, and
that's good. That's really interesting. I wish we had known about that sooner, because so often we always talk about new moms and we wanted to birth talk stories about and stuff like that.
Blended family. Like, it's crazy, because I know that my son was not receptive. Like, I was seeing someone for, like, I was with this person for like 7 years, and he grew up with him. I think for like 7 years. So he met my son when he was like 3, and fast forward, obviously it didn't work out. And then a new person entered, and my son was not receptive to him whatsoever. He didn't like the affection that he gave me. He just didn't like it. And it was hard because my son was trying to fight for my attention and his attention. So it was really hard to be like telling the person that I was with right now, it's like, you know, you have to learn to be patient with him because you're someone new coming into our life. And he feels like you're taking all of my attention away. So that's super interesting. Because for me, I was like, is it even worth being in this relationship with someone? Because I feel like there was such a struggle between my child. What advice would you give to moms or to dads that are currently dating or are in that situation where how do they talk to their child, or is that kind of a deal breaker?
I don't know that there's a right answer, honestly. I think that's my answer for everything. There's no right answer. But
well, every situation's different.
Compassionate response, honestly. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. I don't think that parents should just not date because their kids are upset about it. I think the approach matters, though. Like, I think taking into consideration, having a conversation with your kids, listening to what they're experiencing, listening to what their needs are if they feel like their needs aren't getting met. Because depending on the age group, kids can just fill in their own blanks. They just sort of create their own narrative about what's happening or what this means. And when parents don't talk about it or don't address it, then that's where they go down their own whatever story of I don't matter as much, or mom's too busy now. Whereas if you make space to just talk openly of like, are you okay? And what do you need from mom? And all of those things, then you just create more space for there to be trust and for it to go slow. Yeah.
So the pandemic seems to be the topic of conversation all the time. What have you seen family or heard from families going through this time? Like, are you still practicing right now, like even virtually?
Yeah.
So what is the biggest hurdle that families are struggling with right now?
Probably all being like locked inside. And I mean, even to do therapy, people are sitting in their cars, in their garage, because they don't have a private space. Which is just like heart-wrenching. And they're trying to manage 6-year-olds on a Zoom call and their own Zoom calls for work. And I just think it's not normal life at all. Everybody's stuck inside. No one's doing their activities that help them cope. Everybody's trying to manage kids' schedules and their own work schedules. You know, if there's conflict in the house, people are yelling, people are fighting. I just think that there's very little connection. All the things that we would lean on before, we don't have anymore. Yeah.
So what are some of your tips for couples who are butting heads through the pandemic? Because I know of a lot. And myself included. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, oh my God, I honestly thought someone was going to get murdered or we would just split up. It was one of the two. There was no middle ground. But that was a huge struggle for us. So like, what advice do you have for couples going through that?
I mean, it's not going to be easy for everyone if they live in a smaller place, but what I try to tell people is like, find a space in the house that you guys sort of outline of like, this is my space, this is your space. And when we're in those spaces, don't come into my space. It's kind of like, there's the ground rules of the house, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like do things, go for walks if you can. Don't like be on top of each other all the time. Take space apart, watch something different from the other person, do something different. I think it's just really about learning to take some space even when you're all kind of crammed in.
It's funny because my ex actually works out from my home.
Okay.
And I feel like sometimes I want to like punch him in the face. I'm so sorry. He's probably gonna watch
He's
this.
not. She's not sorry.
And I'm like usually pretty patient and stuff, but I find myself like really lashing out really bad. And then as like the day progresses, I'm just like, wow, you're such a fucking bitch, Arlene. Even like when I'm like, you're talking too fucking loud. Like, don't you fucking have your own house to be in? He's in a process of moving. So he comes there because he's spending time with my son because he was doing online school. So how can someone be self-aware when when a trigger is about to happen? I mean, I know the pandemic is such a weird time right now, but how can we be self-aware to be like, oh my God, I'm feeling a certain way. What can we do to be like diffusing our own self?
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone's on like higher edge than normal. You're like, everybody's just kind of on edge.
Oh yeah.
But I think when you notice yourself like getting worked up, make a decision to either, okay, I just got to go ask this person, okay, we're all in the house. Can you please talk quieter? Like, I can't hear my own calls. And just go ask for what you need in a kind way. Or if you're just like frustrated at everything and someone's breathing too loud and it's just like those little things, you got to do something to calm yourself down. And maybe that's like, go take a walk for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But also let's just normalize that you're going to be on edge and like things are going to be, they're going to be testing you more than they normally would.
Right. And I did that last night. I went to the mall by myself. And
great.
I was leaving, and then Mark was like, where are you going? I was like, I just want to be by myself for a while. and as I was out, I was like, God damn, I'm so glad we don't live in Montreal. They have a curfew. Yeah, you get fined if you leave your house. And a friend of mine lives there and said that people are renting out their dogs.
Yeah.
They'll rent out their dogs like, oh, if you want to leave the house, here's my dog, $20, because they won't fine you if you're walking your dog.
Yeah.
Isn't that fucked up?
That's a great way to make money.
It is, right? But I would hate my life. Oh my God. 8 o'clock curfew.
And also, what does that do? Like, the people with dogs can go out, but the rest of us have to stay inside.
That's not fair.
It just doesn't make sense.
I just feel like everything's so lopsided and again, it's such a weird time. And there's not a right or wrong, or there's just not a perfect answer. I mean, we can't appease everyone. And we were talking about mental health, and it is taking a really big toll on people. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, last night, something literally triggered me, and it wasn't malicious in any way, shape, or form. And I literally texted Giselle. I was like, I'm going offline right now. And I just don't want to talk to anyone. Like, and it's really weird for me to say such a thing to her because we talk on a constant basis. And she's like, let me know if there's anything I could do. And when I saw the text, I was kind of like, there's nothing you can do. Like, that's what was going through my head. And I was just like, that's such a fucking annoying text message. And my mindset was just so all over the place. Like, nothing can help me. Mm-hmm. And then as I sat there, the feeling couldn't go away. So I picked up the phone. I said, do you have a second?
She called me.
Yeah. And I called her and I like literally cried it out because I was like, I don't know what it triggered. I don't know how to feel. I just don't know what to fucking do with myself. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm pretty sure there's more like me out there. What like, obviously, what can we do?
Well, I mean, you said it, like, you just cried it out. I think we gotta be able to feel too. Everybody's trying to keep it together.
Right.
Everyone's like, okay, just gotta have everything together during this pandemic.
Exactly.
And I'm like, do we? Like, I'm a big time crier and I just embrace it. Like, it makes other people uncomfortable, but I remember.
But that's their problem. Yeah.
I remember I like got cut off one day and I had already had such a stressful day. And so I went into a restaurant. I was meeting my friend for drinks or whatever. This was pre-pandemic. And I just burst into tears at the booth before my friend got there. And the waitress brings like a stack of napkins like this. Doesn't say a word to me, just like side slides it over. And I'm like, I'm fine. Don't worry. And then my friend comes in and she's like, I am mortified. Like, how can you be crying in public? I'm like, I don't really care. And then the waitress came. I'm like, sorry for making you uncomfortable. But it's just like, I could laugh at myself. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
I cried for a few minutes and then I was like, okay, so some guy cut me off. It doesn't really matter. And like, he was like swearing at me and stuff. But these things hit us sometimes.
Yeah, they
Out
do.
of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
And good for you for not letting that stop you just because you were in public. Because I'm pretty sure maybe during dinner you would have been holding that in, like, and then you wouldn't be able to be yourself. You would have been sitting there thinking about it
Totally.
and holding it in.
It would have just like sat with me the whole night and bothered me and stewed. And then I cried for 2 minutes and then was laughing. And the waitress, I was laughing with her about how she brought this massive, literally not like 2 napkins, but like a whole stack. I was like,
She probably thought you were going to sit there and just cry all night.
I was like, I really looked that bad.
So speaking of crying, is it healthy to cry in front of your children?
I was just going to ask.
Were you going to ask that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I hide when I need to cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that. I think that kids can learn a lot by seeing that it's okay to show emotion, and they learn from what we do. And so by you don't want to put your kids in a position where they have to take care of you or they're worried about you.
Yeah.
But you can. So if you're having like an absolute meltdown, probably go to the bathroom and take care of yourself. But if you have a moment of tears, you can just say to your kids, like, sometimes people cry and sometimes we have hard days and mom's okay. And we kind of just take care of ourselves. And then they learn about emotion. They learn that it's okay to show emotion. It's okay to feel things. When we're just like a brick wall and again, try to be like, everything's always fine. Kids don't learn about emotion and emotion regulation. And they don't grow up thinking it's okay for me to have this experience.
And that's my struggle is like you, I'll hide sometimes because I'm like, I don't want her to see me. But sometimes I will cry in front of her. But then like you said, she'll get worried. She'll be like, what's wrong, Mom? And I'll just be like, Mommy's just having a really bad day. And like, I'm caught between showing her that I'm strong and it's okay to be strong, but also like you said, letting them know about like emotional regulation and that it's okay to feel this way and that even moms have bad days. Moms aren't perfect. So there's days where I do that. And then some other days I'm just like, no, she can't see me and I'll go and hide and cry. So, that's really good advice.
There's a book, Option B. I don't know if you guys have talked about it when you've talked about like grieving and stuff.
It's called Option B.
Option B,
okay.
And it's about loss. But she loses her husband, and she basically normalizes at that point with her kids, like, no emotion is wrong in our house, and she just it says flat out, we can all feel anything at any time. And if I remember correctly, I haven't read it for a couple of years now, but they actually make like an emotion board in their house where it's like, yeah, I'm feeling this. And she just normalized it because she's grieving the loss of her husband. What was she supposed to do?
Right.
Turn that off? You can't always turn it
No.
off.
And that was actually a question I was going to ask is losing, it's almost like when you lose someone who's close to you and you obviously have children, it's like, how do you navigate your children's feelings, your own, and try to keep everything together without looking like, without just wanting to lay around, because you can't when you have kids. So how do parents, how can they help their kids navigate a loss while you're also going through your own feelings of the loss?
Yeah, when I'm working whenever I'm working with parents, I talk to them about like making sure they set aside time where they can grieve. And maybe that's when kids return back to like, let's say kids won't be off school forever if they lose someone. The grief experience for kids is very different than adults. The resolution tends to be much quicker. So then I'll tell parents, like, when you're not around your kids is your time to like feel, sleep, do nothing. But then when your kids have needs that need to be met, those are the times where you have to kind of park it. You got to figure out some sort of containment of, and sometimes visualization even of like, okay, I'm literally putting this on the shelf. I'm going to my kids now. And when I have space away from my kids, I can go back to the shelf, open up my grief for a bit and sort of engage with those emotions. So I think for parents, it's hard because you're not a robot. It's not like flipping a switch. It's just about learning, how do I contain it a little bit while I'm with them, so that it's not like no one's eaten in weeks because I can't get up to cook a meal, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we had, for those of you who don't know, we had Melissa Vandervloot on our show, where we discussed grief and how she was navigating life without her mom, but she is my age. I think she said she was like 33, right?
Yeah. So like that. Sorry, Melissa.
Yeah. Yeah. So
she's young. She's young.
So she actually brought us, she connected us with Katrina. So did you help Melissa get through that point in her life then? Because she's obviously not a child and she lost her mom. So, like how does your approach to adults come into play? Like adults who don't have kids, like, is it, do you say something different? Like, okay, you have the time to grieve now, or?
Well, anytime that I support anyone, with, in any, like, so I used to do specifically grief work, and I think the grief process is not linear. So, obviously it's going to be easier if you don't have kids to worry about, but it's not easy. Like, it still doesn't make it easy, and you still have jobs to worry about, and potentially spouses and friendships. And I mean, there's still relationships that you're in regardless. And if you have a significant loss of any kind, you gotta engage with it. You gotta feel it. You can't just stuff it away and act like it won't come back up. I often use the metaphor with my clients, or with anybody, that friends or anyone that I've talked to about this. It's like trying to stuff a beach ball under water, and like eventually it's just going to pop back up and smack you in the face. So you can sit on top of the beach ball for as long as you can try, and then at some point it will pop back up.
That's a good analogy.
So, I went on your website.
Okay.
Of all your services. Yeah. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
you have a very impressive career.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, she does that. So
what are you going to ask?
Where is this
Oh no. When Har laughs before she asks a question, I'm just like, all right, I'm ready. Let me take a drink. Let me take a drink.
I see you're an expert in dating and boundary challenges.
Oh God.
So I find myself sometimes that I don't, like, my boundaries can be pushed away too often when it comes to dating. What advice could you give to parents who are, dating out there? Do you think, like, with the pandemic happening, do you think people are just obviously feeling lonely and there's more people online, or do you think this is a good time to not be online because people are just there because they're bored or passing time? Because I actually turned off all of my dating apps, everything, because I feel like it's not going to be helpful for me, because everyone there is just trying to pass time. Like, do you think that people are just bored going through during the pandemic?
I mean, yeah, probably. I think so. I also saw a thing online about that too, that like people are just, they're just on there trying to pass time. They're at home scrolling through their phones. What else are they going to do? But so maybe it's amplified during the pandemic, but I also just think that online dating can be a platform that has all kinds of levels of interest, right? There's some people who want to meet a life partner, and there's some people who have zero interest in that.
So how do you filter and cycle through all the people online quickly and fast? I need to know the answer.
Har sends me the most ridiculous shit. Like, she'll be like, oh my God, look what this guy sent me. And I'll read it and be like, there's guys out there who do that. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know if I could go back to dating, because you're strong, man.
You know what?
Dealing with all of this.
And this was my other question is, because I know exactly what I want, and men can be like, oh my God, you want such a serious relationship? It's like, no, I don't. I want to see and go with the flow, but
I just not want to see your dick. Like, stop sending it to me.
And that too. I don't care to sit on your face. Just don't
ask me.
Just don't ask me, because that's disgusting.
And like, the thing is like, we have to stop letting guys get away with that. Like, put them in their place.
Yeah. I just don't I just don't respond anymore, or I'll block them. And where do they think? Actually, it's funny because a lot of men that I talk to, well, not a lot, but and some guy friends that I have, they say women are exactly the same thing.
I believe it. I believe it goes both ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually ask for stories because I'm like, why are women like that? I don't get the whole psychology of why people are on there, like why people are just not truthful and saying, this is what I want. This is why I'm on this platform, because I just want to sleep around. That's cool. Like, I'm not going to hate on you if you want to if you need to get your needs met, kudos to you. Like, I have no anything. But why do you think people just are not forthcoming?
Well, I think some are too forthcoming, but I think for the most part is because it's not gonna get them where they want to get to, right? So like I'd say 9 times out of 10, if they're I just want to have sex with you right away, most women are be like, okay, see ya.
Bye.
So yeah, yeah. So then they got to put in some. I mean, it becomes deceptive then at some point because they're just trying to get you to
Sleep with them,
hook you enough. I think some people, yeah, for sure.
Well, there must be people out there who respond to that sort of thing because they're obviously shooting their shot and saying like, okay, let me try this out. Someone's bound to say yes. Maybe there are people who are into that. Like that one guy he sent me where he was like, I just want to suck your pussy until you're dry or whatever.
Yeah,
and
it was
I'm like,
disgusting.
that was the first thing that he said. And
That was the first one-liner. So that's why.
Oh my
And the
God.
thing is, my girlfriend actually set up this thing on my Facebook, and I don't know how to remove it. So I'm like it's like this dating app, and I don't know how to remove it. So it's constantly giving me notifications. So I'm like searching and Googling how to remove it. But you know what? I was just like, you know what? I've shut everything off, but I chuckle at everything else. And I was like, did you really? Like, what kind of human are you? Like, I don't, like, what's your thought process? Like, do you really think you're just, and maybe some women they're okay with that. And I'm fine. I'm not going to judge you. So when you're going through the dating process and through the cycle and stuff, and I watch Matthew Hussey. I'm not sure if you know who he is.
Yeah.
It's like, he tells you to, you have to have your boundaries. So when he's telling you something and doing something, I feel like sometimes women or even men can get hooked already after a couple of dates, or they're always making excuses. How do you actually break that cycle? Because I know that I've been in that cycle before where it's like, they're pushing my damn boundaries, and then I'll sit down and was like, that's enough. Like, but then I keep going back. Like, how do I stop myself from doing that? Like, how do I stop getting sucked in?
Well, that is like, we're attached beings by nature. So we do get, when there's some sort of attachment or some sort of feelings, it's hard to break, right? We'll continue to let people treat us like we're nothing, or like drop their little breadcrumbs and we're just chasing behind them. And I think typically what happens is like you get to a breaking point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to beg for somebody to make time for me or whatever it is. And if I'm working with anyone in my private practice, I'm like, I think it always comes back to self-worth. Like, I'm like, if you don't hold yourself in a high enough regard and you allow somebody to treat you like this, it's going to continue to happen. And at some point, you're going to make a decision of like, I might think I want this person, but I don't actually want a person that I have to beg to see them or to like feel like I matter at all. And when people do some work on self-love and self-compassion and self-worth, you come to a different place where you're like, I actually, like, you're not attractive to me anymore. And it's not attractive for you to just flake in and out of my life and stuff. Yeah. But when we haven't done some of that self-work, that core self-work, we're going to get sucked into those patterns.
So for anyone who wants to do self-work, self-care, self-work, self-love, what steps can they take? I know they're probably like saying it in their mind, but what can they do to, what are little things they can do to practice that in their everyday life?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is like notice your self-talk. So most of us are like in our heads beating ourselves up, have some narrative going, and the brain doesn't actually even know the difference between me saying those things to myself versus if somebody else was saying them. And we would never tolerate if like a guy was standing here saying like you're stupid, you're ugly, you're this, you're that. But then we tolerate doing it to ourselves for some reason. And so I think the best way to start is don't allow yourself to engage in negative self-talk. You can feel, not great. You can feel disappointed. You can feel, some of those feelings of unworth that are going to come up or not feeling good in your own skin. But don't go down a rabbit hole of like telling yourself you're horrible and shitty and all of these things.
Yeah. I saw a meme that said, if you could talk to plants to help them grow, or if you can say nice things to plants to help them grow, imagine what that can do for yourself. Like if you talk to yourself. But as moms, and even for yourself as a stepmom, I'm sure like there's always guilt that you have to deal with. And I know for myself, I have a lot of mom guilt. I know you have a lot of mom guilt because we just talked about it last night. But as moms, how can they deal with the guilt of being a mom? Because we're stuck in a society where everyone is always criticizing what we're doing, like we were talking about. That's a common theme.
And it's even women who are doing it to each other.
Yeah. So how can you deal with that guilt of I'm enough?
Yeah, again, that's some self-work. That's not going to just come overnight. We're so beat down. Like we're in a society where everyone's telling you you're not good enough, and everybody's telling you you're doing it wrong, and everybody's shaming each other, and everybody's treating each other like they don't matter and like they're disposable. And I mean, a lot of the ways that we are operating are of course they feed feelings of us not feeling worthy or good enough or that we don't matter. And so it's a process. It's a process to start to break free of some of that. And it's not going to happen overnight because everybody wants to tell you that you're doing it wrong or you're not good enough in some ways. Those messages are everywhere. And the thing is that we're kind of conditioned to focus on those messages. Like we can get 100 compliments and we'll focus on the one person who says something negative to us.
Yes. Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah.
So honestly, it's like retraining the brain to look at the positive things.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes with like mindset. That comes with reminding yourself of like, yeah, I can focus on this one comment, or I can focus on these 100. And it's like a whole paradigm shift, a whole perspective shift. Gratitude would help with that. Like often starting to incorporate gratitude into your life helps shift to a more positive way of seeing the world. And it does take practice to shift into a way of recognizing all of the positive and all the people who do want to lift you up and support you versus the one that wants to tear you down.
And there's always going to be that one.
Or multiple.
At least.
So on a couple of previous episodes we've had, we talked to a mom who was going through a divorce. And we talked about ego, and sometimes we have to check our egos out because it's not about us, it's about our kids. So obviously there's some people, and some of our viewers are probably going through that now or have gone through it. What advice can you give both parents, even though the relationship was so bad, it could be good or could be bad? How can they set their differences aside and truly make it about their child and not about the breakdown of the relationship?
I mean, you see this in almost every separation, is that people are so focused on how they're wounded, and that's driving them. It comes from an emotional place, a place of hurt, which does not bring out our best selves.
Nope.
So again, there's no easy way to park it. And I think the healthiest relationships are the people who are like, I don't want to hang on to all of this resentment and spend the next 5 years fighting with lawyers and dragging my kid through the mud. But there's lots of people who want to get back at their partner. They want to see their partner hurt. They want to, do all of those things. So, if you're in a situation, I'd say, where your partner is like that, where your partner is just trying to like ruin your life, wants to get back at you, high conflict. I mean, I feel for you because that's maybe one of the worst experiences to be trying to settle something, settle all of your financial matters and kid matters with somebody who just wants to be in conflict. But then I think it goes to get yourself some support, like make sure you have lots of support around you, potentially go to a therapist and work through your own, whatever it is, wounds, if you need help to set a firm boundary, if you need to set limits of like, I'm only communicating with this person either through lawyers or through email or whatever. You kind of have to work through what is a good plan for you so that you protect the boundaries of your own life, but you can't control the other person. And I think that that's where people will get really trapped in a divorce situation where like their partner is just wants to ruin them or is bringing the kids in. And I mean, the really sad thing is there's tons of manipulation and alienation among families, which we're never going to get 100% of people on board to check their ego, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know from experience that people say that my relationship with my ex is weird. I don't find it weird whatsoever. Like,
it's healthy.
It's super healthy. Like, people are like, you guys traveled together? You guys went to Disneyland together? You guys vacationed? I was like, not just the two of us, with my son, yes. We didn't sleep on the same bed. Like, we can actually sit on the same bench and cheer the same person, which is our son. And people really find that weird. And, they ask how we have been able to navigate it. And I said, it's got to come from you. Mm-hmm. And then if they're going to willing to meet you halfway, because it's not going to work if both didn't. Because I know that my ex was very resistant until we all went to therapy. And I actually found out more about myself, and I actually cried because I didn't realize I was doing something to make him feel a certain way because I didn't really.
That was your ego.
That was my ego, and I didn't know. And now I feel like I'm always self-checking myself. And sometimes I do get, some of my girlfriends or like friends, or they'll be like, like when they're going through separation, they're like, oh, you didn't ask for this X amount of money for child support or doing this. And I was like, listen, you are 50-50. You still have to take care of your own child. So I don't know why you want to wring out every dollar out of the dad. Like, I don't understand. And I feel for some of the dads, I'm probably going to get some backlash for this, but what is enough sometimes for both parties?
Yeah. I mean, I obviously have my own opinion about that based on how I would want to live my own life, right? And that's that, like, I don't want to live in conflict, and money's not worth that to me. Like, no. I want my peace of mind. So for me, I have clarity on that. I don't think a lot of people do. And I don't think a lot of people are willing to look in the mirror and look at, like, how have I been a part of this? And let's be honest, like, this is like in circumstances of abuse or anything like that this isn't to, shame victims. I'm talking about in a dynamic of a relationship. Yeah. There are two people. Yeah. We all have a role in that, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think we got to be able to look in the mirror and say, what have I done to contribute? And what do I need to do to let go? What do I need to do to heal? And I think one of the things that I see a lot is people can get they stay stuck in the patterns that they were in for a long time in their relationships. And they'll even bring it forward into a new relationship, like a dating relationship. And they haven't taken the time to look in the mirror and be like, oh, this is a pattern of mine. Mm-hmm. And it just plays out over time. And honestly, I think one of the keys to having healthy relationships and having a meaningful life is, like, you got to be able to look in the mirror and recognize, like,
oh my God, I just keep saying to someone, they ask me what I'm fearful of, and I was like, myself. I don't like looking at myself in the mirror. And it's true, because when I went through therapy, and it took me 7 years to realize that I had a fault in the breakdown of that relationship. And I actually apologized because I was very like, it was your fault. You did this. Like, because he wanted out. And I was like, I was the perfect partner. I did everything. Like, yes, I did. I was probably the perfect partner. But there was also something that I was doing that contributed to the way that he was feeling. I didn't realize that. And I literally cried after 7 years of not being with this particular person to be like, wow. Like I was like, wow, oh my God.
And I think once you're able to look at yourself in the mirror like that and figure out that you do have faults and that you see things from the other person's perspective, I think that's when the rest of your life begins. Honestly,
Totally.
like it's just so, it feels like such a breath of fresh air. Like I have people who I hated in high school and who I would like see and my blood would boil. I'd be like, I fucking hate that person. And then now it's like, oh, how are you doing? How's the kids? And it's like, it feels so good not to have that hate.
Yeah, I feel like it's so much more work to be angry than to be like, okay.
Yeah, it's just,
it is what it is.
Well, and here's a thing that I always use myself. I'm like, if I'm having strong emotions about anything, that's a good hint to me that I got some healing to do.
Yeah, it's you, right? It's about you.
And that's not to say that people aren't jerks.
It's true.
But it's a sign within myself. I'm like, got to heal that part because I shouldn't be this reactive, or I don't want to be this reactive. Even if people are assholes to me, I'm like, I don't need to engage in all of that. So I use it as a guide for myself of like, got some more healing. And that's why I'm always learning. Like I'm always doing, energy or meditation or yoga or psychology or trauma, or because I'm like, the layers within ourselves are never ending. And for me, I think rather than resisting it my whole life and being like, I don't want to like face the things that I don't like about myself, I just fully embrace it. I'm like, no human is perfect. Every human being has got their stuff. And I can either like roll with it and like live in peace and feel fulfilled and happy, or I can resist it my entire life and probably struggle forever.
Yeah. And that's a shitty feeling, is not being able to be yourself, right?
Absolutely. And as we meet amazing people every week, I can't speak on behalf of Giselle. You can say yes or no, but I feel like every week there's something that I have to work on with the people that I'm encountering, and I'm
100%.
finding so much more about myself. And thank you so much, Katrina. We are almost out of time because we could talk forever. Like literally, I have more questions. But, we can't we'll take it offline. But before you go, I wanted to ask you, there was a quote on your website. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness can we present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. Do you think that humanity today has lost its way more than ever, especially during the pandemic?
Yeah, I do. I think when we look at the state of the world right now, I think everybody's trying to prove that they're right, and everybody wants to fight their side of whatever it is, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's COVID, whether it's whatever's happening in the U.S. And there's more, there's lots of people saying there's more polarity now than ever. And I think we have lost our ability to just look at another human being and be like, you're scared and I'm scared. And like, you're trying to find your truth, I'm trying to find my truth, or like anything, you're struggling and I'm struggling. We don't do that anymore. Everybody wants to like fight their side and like take a stance and I'm right. And the thing is that I say to people, I'm like, at this point, like, I'm not going to change anybody's mind, and they're probably not going to change anybody else's mind because no one's listening.
Yeah.
No one cares to listen anymore. No one's like, oh, this is just another human being that's also suffering.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the saddest thing, and I think that's honestly probably why people are really feeling the weight of all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, because you're probably helping thousands of people get through what they're going through. And we need more people like you, where we can learn from. And just like Har, I learned so much every single week from every single individual who walks into this room. I got a lot of work to do. Yeah.
And I learn from my work too.
You must. Yeah.
All the time.
And not even just with your practice, but with like your yoga and your Reiki. Like, I'm sure you get it from all other avenues, which is amazing.
I'm always learning from people.
That's great. Yeah. So thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have you on our show. You have a very impressive career behind you. So if anyone out there would like our listeners or viewers who are currently going through something and would like some time or support and would like to work with Katrina, you can reach out to her on her website at katrinashaw.ca, right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So we wanted to remind you all that we are now on Facebook, and as usual, we're on YouTube as well. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our videos so you don't miss an episode. And just give us some love. And yeah, at the end of the day, remember to wash your hands, wear your masks, and love yourself even on the hardest days.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.